Have you ever wondered what to do when a camel refuses to follow your instruction? In this episode, we'll give you some hints and suggestions as to what to do in that situation. This is the Camel Connection podcast.
Welcome to our weekly Camel Q&A.
This is where you ask a camel question and we answer it.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Russell. And together, with other camel experts, we answer your camel questions. Hello everyone, welcome back.
This is another episode of the Camel Q&A here on the Camel Connection podcast.
Woohoo, here we go. Okay, we've got some good questions coming up for you.
Yes, well, we have one question today, of course, because we only do one. But that is a question actually from one of our Camel Connection students and graduates. Let me just bring it up because for some reason I've forgotten already. Okay, so the topic of today is what to do when a camel refuses to listen. The question directly was from Aqua, so thanks so much for putting that question in, Aqua, because it's a really good point to make. And sometimes these obvious things don't seem obvious to us, so we forget to talk about it. So yeah, it's really great when you guys put your questions in. So the question is, what can I do differently when I ask a camel to get up and it remains hushed?
Okay.
So this basically applies to anything a camel's not doing.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, we've all certainly been there when you've taught the camel, to respond to the command hush and to your actions for hush, but then the camel doesn't stand up when you ask it to get up.
Well, it still happens to us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when I say still, I mean there's some older camels, one in particular I'm thinking of, Yuko, who absolutely refuses to get up. Actually, in our riding operation, when we do the beach rides, he's figured out that, because our camels sit to, as the riders are getting on, he's figured out, because he's the second camel from the front, that he doesn't actually have to get up until the front camel gets up.
That's right.
So he will remain seated regardless of the up, 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 up. So I think there's 2 points we should cover here. One, the consistency, and two, that sometimes you just got to work with the animal. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like with, Yuko, look, honestly, you could go ahead and use the old philosophy, which is, look, if you're going to learn something out of this podcast today, consistency and persistency, and quite gentle persistency at that. That is probably the biggest lesson that you'll ever learn with camels, to be honest, with everything that you do. But with some camels like Yuko, for example, he just won't sit up. He just knows that he doesn't have to until that front camel actually stands up. And that's him. And sort of have to work with it, and little concession.
It would be different if he was at the back, because we have to get the back camels up first. So
Absolutely.
That would be a different story, and which is the second point we'll get to. But he's smart enough that he's figured out he doesn't actually have to get up.
No.
Until the front camel gets up.
Yeah, and I suppose we can make these hard and fast rules, that they need to do this, that and the other, but at the same time we've got to also remember that, they are a living being, and they're all different. And
they have a massive level of intelligence.
And we've got to work with it.
Yeah.
And so, consistency and persistency, quite gentle consistency, persistency. And in your training, if you've got your camel and you've trained your camel, you're in a training session with your camel, don't give up, okay? You've got to have a success so that camel then knows that who you are. You are a person who, you've asked the camel to do something which is not unreasonable, and you are going to continue until the camel does what it is that you ask him to do.
I think
once you've had that win, all right, or I call it a win, but once you've had that win, then take the pressure off, walk away. Okay, let them have some think time. Okay, make sure they have that think time. That is really important. They need to have that think time.
I think from our experience doing camel training courses and obviously training people, to train their camels and handle their camels effectively. All in all, I think some of the biggest bad habits probably come from that inconsistency. That they've maybe asked a camel to do something and the camel's not done it, and then they've asked a few more times and they're like, oh, well...
I'll give up.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a user error per se. I think we think sometimes that I'm doing something wrong,
or this isn't working.
Yeah.
But in the training session, so take for example, how long does it take for someone to train to be a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or something like that? We're talking years.
Yeah.
Okay, and quite often you have to repeat things over and over again until some sort of philosophy or some sort of technique is cemented. And it's sometimes quite the same with the animals.
I've actually got the perfect
Yeah.
story here too. Is one of our clients in the US. She had bought our online course and went through the training, and she really believed in the method of the Camel Connection trust-based camel training. But she got to a point where she felt stuck, and her camel wasn't listening to her on the sitting command, and using the certain techniques to do that. But for her, kudos to her, she did not give up she thought she was doing something wrong. So she actually came to one of our courses we did in the United States last year. And kudos to her for going, oh, well, obviously there's a level of learning that I need to learn here in order to be able to get my camel to do this, because she believed in the method.
Yeah.
So she came along to the course and she did the course, and her camel sat, and she's like, wow, I was so glad I did not give up on this, because she saw the benefits of not giving up. But she tweaked a little bit of her, whatever she was not doing or not doing, at home without one-on-one instruction. She tweaked that in the course to help her camel to understand to do that. And it was a tiniest little tweak, and that was it. So, that's just a little story just to demonstrate how it's not always a user error. Sometimes you just need that little bit of a tweak that, and somebody who, somebody like us who we've had a lot of experience with a lot of different camels to go, well, just try this, It's the same thing, just with a little bit of a tweak to that camel's personality, and then you've got your results.
Yeah. No, it is definitely listening to the camel as well, but at the same time, it's that quite gentle consistency and especially persistency.
And if you've got a young camel or you deal with young camels, that's probably one of the biggest things, is to keep persistent at. If you're asking them to get up, they need to get up. So you've got to keep reinforcing that. And if it takes 10 minutes, it takes 10 minutes.
Or
That's
20.
why...
Or 20.
Yeah, I've heard worse.
I've heard hours. And that's okay.
But that's our job as camel handlers and cameliers. And if you're not committed to that, then you need to reconsider, how much you want to handle your camels and all that sort of stuff. Because
what it is you want to achieve at the end goal. You really do need to sort of think, long term with all of this training, and the little things that you do on a daily or weekly basis with your camel is going to count in the long term. And so if you're consistent and persistent, okay, it's only going to get easier. I mean, yes, sure, camels do go through different stages of what we call, the rebellious years. But so long as you're consistent and persistent with what you're doing, with your training and your techniques, then the long term is where the real reward is.
I think it's a really good point you made about the long term, because often when we get something like an animal or, anything really, it can feel like a short term game because it's new, it's exciting. But if you own a camel or you want to own a camel, it's a really good point Russell's making, is make it a long term long-term gain, in sense that if you've got a young camel, well, it's going to take time for them to learn some manners and all this sort of stuff. And sometimes they will know it and then they'll test the boundaries. And then you've got to, go back to square one, which is your foundational training, the Camel Connection Trust-Based Camel Training, and start again. And that's completely fine. We do it over and over on our farm with our camels.
Yep, no, that's it. And,
there's not a problem with that.
No, definitely not. And I mean, we do that ourselves in our own study habits. When we're learning something, and we might go into the garage, for example, and I'll start making a saddle, for example, and then all of a sudden I just think, oh, hang on, now how did I do this? All right, go back to square one, and go back through the process. So it's quite fine to actually go backwards in your training, so long as your intention is to go forward and for the long term. Yeah,
well, it's more just revisiting what you already know and what the camel already knows.
Yep.
So that you can, it can turn out for the better. But with your situation, Aqua, I mean, knowing you kind of personally, that you do work in a commercial situation. Have a look where that camel is if it's in the string, like in the camel caravan, where is it? What situations is that camel not getting up? Is it because there's, it's going to work? Because camels know when they're working, and if they don't want to work, then they're like, why do I have to get up? I'd rather sit in the sun and do nothing. So I would just question everything that camel's doing and observe that camel. Where is it in the string? If it's in the string, if it's in the yards before work begins, it probably has an inkling that work's about to begin. So why would it want to get up for work? So just, and I'm assuming it's an older camel. But work with the personality of the camel, and and make it. I think the thing that why we enjoy our camels so much is we do work with their personalities and we make it fun. Like, oh, Yuko's doing that again. Isn't he such a character? Yada, yada, yada. Or, Jack's done this, Coco's done that, and...
Very much a personal thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like working with people. They're your co-workers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great question.
Yes.
Thanks, Aqua.
Yes, and thank you so much for that question. And make sure if you have a question... Don't forget to go over to our website and ask your camel question. Just go over to camelconnection.com, click on the Ask a Camel Question box and submit your question. Keep them rolling, guys, because everybody's loving these. We've had thousands of downloads on our podcast so far. So, keep the questions rolling in. It's helpful to not only you, but everybody else there too. You'd be surprised how many other people have the same question as you.
And just one little pointer, Aqua, if you're listening, and anyone else with the same sort of issue, if you move to the side as if you're going to go around behind the camel,
actually,
that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay, but make sure you're still holding onto its lead rope.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you go side to side. And you've got
still
your instruction,
whatever
your instruction is, we use up. But whatever your instruction is, but you go from side to side, okay, just gently tugging on that rope, pulling it up into the air above the camel's head, and going side to side. That will make a difference as well.
Yeah. Even having a second person behind the camel can make a difference.
Yep, that's right.
Guys, also, don't forget that Virtual Camel School is actually coming up again. We're doing a live round again, which means that you get your pre-recorded training videos, and then every week for 4 weeks, we're doing a live training video. So we basically dive deeper into the lesson that you've learnt that week. And also we answer all your questions to anything related to camels, because there's so many variances because of the personalities of camels. We would love to have you there. So go over to camelconnection.com/camel school. We would love to have you part of Virtual Camel School. It's just such a blast always. And we can't wait to do it again with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, catch you then.
Bye.
See ya. Bye. If you found this Camel Q&A helpful, please let us know. Leave a review wherever you're listening from.
Do you have a camel question for us? Head over to camelconnection.com to ask your camel question now.